All right, so today we're diving into a story that's really got people talking.
Yeah.
And it's, it's pretty heavy stuff, to be honest. We're talking about Sean Diddy Combs. Now, the music mogul,
Yeah.
the fashion icon. I mean, the guy's practically synonymous with the American dream,
Yeah.
hip-hop edition, right?
Right.
Recently, some really serious accusations have come out against him. We're talking charges of sex trafficking and racketeering. And these allegations, this isn't just about Diddy. It makes you wonder about how power really works in the music industry and beyond.
It's wild how this case makes you rethink that whole image Diddy's built up over the years. You know, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, just Diddy. He's always evolving his brand, but this indictment suggests there's something darker under the surface, a pattern of behavior that's really troubling.
Absolutely. And it's not just like a tabloid frenzy here. We've got actual court documents, lawsuits, and people claiming to be victims who are sharing their stories. So for those who might not be totally up on the legal jargon, what exactly is Diddy being charged with?
So the indictment hits him with racketeering, which basically means using his businesses, the record label, the clothing lines, all of it, as a front for illegal activities. This is serious stuff. We're talking the kind of charge you usually see with organized crime.
Wow. Organized crime. That's a far cry from the Ciroc popping, party-throwing image we're used to. And then there are the sex trafficking charges, which are making it even more disturbing.
Right. Specifically, it's sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, meaning he's accused of exploiting people for commercial sex through forced threats or by manipulating them so they feel like they have no other choice. And sadly, the details in this case are really graphic.
It's rough. And to make it even worse, this isn't just one isolated thing. The indictment talks about Diddy demanding absolute loyalty from people, often through intimidation. And then you have these other accusations that fit that same pattern.
Exactly. And that's where these other lawsuits come in, like the one from Dawn Richards. She was a member of Diddy's group, Danity Kane. She's alleging years of abuse earnings being withheld, just a toxic and exploitative environment.
Which is such a contrast to the glamorous image we associate with Diddy and his artists. It makes you wonder what was really going on behind the scenes all those years.
Right. And then you have Cassie Ventura. She was in a long-term relationship with Diddy. Her lawsuit alleges this horrifying pattern of abuse, forced drug use, rape, physical violence, even being forced into sex work. There's even hotel surveillance footage that seems to show Diddy attacking her.
Man.
Yeah.
It's hard to hear those allegations and not be disturbed. And if those weren't enough, there's another lawsuit. This one's from music producer Rodney Lil Rod Jones.
Yeah. Jones claims Diddy pressured him to solicit prostitutes, even threatened him if he didn't go along with it. It really connects back to that part of the indictment about demanding absolute loyalties through fear and coercion.
It's just a lot to process. You know, we're talking about someone who built his whole career on charisma and collaboration. To think this dark stuff might have been going on underneath it all, it's like a reminder that you can't always trust what you see on the surface.
Exactly. And it gets even more complicated when you consider this case with an unnamed Michigan inmate. This inmate actually won a $100 million default judgment against Diddy.
$100 million. That's wild. What does a default judgment even mean in this situation?
So basically, a default judgment happens when the defendant, in this case Diddy, doesn't respond to the lawsuit at all. It's like he didn't even try to fight the accusations. And these were serious accusations. We're talking drugging and sexual assault.
Yeah.
So the fact that he didn't respond
Speaks volumes.
Yeah, it really does.
Wow. And then he gets hit with this massive financial penalty. It makes you wonder about his legal strategy now with this indictment hanging over his head.
Right. And on top of all that, you've got this almost deafening silence from the rest of the music industry.
It is strange, right? You'd think with someone as well connected as Diddy, there'd be people coming out to defend him or denounce him.
Yeah.
But it's been weirdly quiet.
It's really noticeable. So we talked to some people, industry insiders, and the general feeling is fear. Diddy's built his career on more than just music. It's power, image, if you speak out against him. Even if the accusations are true, it could be career suicide.
Wow. Like a kind of don't bite the hand that feeds you mentality.
Exactly. And then there's a deeper fear, too, that if Diddy goes down, he might take a lot of people with him.
Oh, interesting.
Like if these allegations are true, who else knew? Who looked the other way?
Right.
Staying silent might be a way to protect themselves.
That's a good point. Speaking of looking back, there's this old Diddy interview. I think it's from '99. That's resurfaced, and it's a little creepy given everything that's going on now.
You mean the one where he basically predicts his own arrest?
Yes. He says something like, they're probably going to be arresting me doing all kinds of crazy things just because we want to have a good time.
It's eerie, right? Like he knew this lifestyle could catch up with him.
It's chilling. Like if you had that awareness back then, why not make a change? Why risk it all?
I think that gets at something really important, the addictive nature of power.
Oh, absolutely.
When you're surrounded by yes men, with money and influence at your fingertips, it's easy to feel invincible, like the rules don't apply to you.
And we can't forget about the media's role in all of this. For years, Diddy could do no wrong in their eyes.
Yeah.
He's throwing these lavish parties, dating whoever he wants. And the media ate it up.
Right.
Did they just ignore the rumors about his darker side because it was good for business?
I think that's a valid question. It's the media's job to hold powerful people accountable, not to help them spin their own narratives.
For sure. It feels like this case is a wake-up call.
Yeah.
A reminder that we need journalism that goes beyond the surface level. Speaking of things that don't make sense, what do you make of Diddy's music streams going up since his arrest?
That's a strange one, right?
Yeah.
I guess on one hand, it could be morbid curiosity.
Like people revisiting his music in light of these allegations.
Exactly. But it also makes you wonder about our fascination with celebrity.
Right.
Can we separate the art from the artist?
Especially when that artist is someone as big and influential as Diddy.
It's like we want to enjoy the music,
The fashion, the persona.
even though there's a chance the person behind it all is capable of doing awful things.
It's a real dilemma,
It is. And this case really forces us to confront that.
for sure.
So as we look at where things stand now, with Diddy awaiting trial, facing all these lawsuits,
Right.
This is far from over. So where do things go from here? I mean, with all this legal trouble, can Diddy really come back from this?
Honestly, it's tough to say. The charges are incredibly serious. If he's convicted, he could be facing years in prison.
Right.
And it's not just the criminal charges. Those civil lawsuits could drag on for ages, cost him a fortune, no matter what happens at the criminal case.
It's true. And then there's the whole court of public opinion thing.
Right.
Even if he's found not guilty on everything, can his image, his brand ever really recover? That's the big question, isn't it? Diddy built his whole empire on image, on being larger than life.
Yeah.
And this scandal just cuts right through that. It makes you question everything.
Yeah.
It's possible he could try to rebrand, maybe even spin this whole thing as a redemption arc. But will people buy it?
Especially these days. It feels like there's been a real shift in how we deal with these kinds of accusations.
Oh, absolutely.
The hashtag metoo movement, all the stuff happening in Hollywood, it's like we're finally listening to these stories. Silence isn't the default anymore.
Definitely. And I think that's what makes Diddy's case so important. No matter how the legal stuff shakes out, it's a sign of the times.
Totally.
People are demanding accountability. We're not going to look the other way anymore, especially not when it involves someone with this much power and influence.
It does feel like a turning point, not just for the music industry, but for how we deal with power exploitation and accountability as a whole. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you really hope our listeners take away from all of this?
That's a good question. I think the biggest thing is, don't let the glitz and glamour blind you. Just because someone is rich and famous doesn't mean they're incapable of doing bad things.
Right.
Diddy's case is a perfect example of that. Power can be intoxicating. It can be used to silence victims and hide the truth.
Yeah.
We need to be critical, ask questions, and support those who are brave enough to speak up, no matter how difficult it might seem.
That's a powerful message to end on. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the downfall of Diddy. We've covered a lot today, from the shocking accusations to the power dynamics at play, and of course, the huge impact this case could have on the music industry and beyond. We hope you'll keep digging, keep asking questions, and continue this conversation.